Imagine inner darkness so deep that the very ideas of above and below dissolve into nothing. There drifts a silent star. Not a blazing star like our sun, not a sphere of fire flaring brightly between galaxies, but a vast diamond, a colossal crystal cooled and quiet, the remnant of something that once burned with brilliance. It sounds like a fairy tale, and yet it is real. And if even one such thing exists, how many other wonders might be out there, quietly surpassing the limits of our imagination? We often like to think we live in an orderly universe. Planets orbit their stars. Galaxies spin along their measured paths. Everything appears to obey certain laws, but the deeper we look, the stranger the portrait becomes. A star can crystallize into diamond. A planet can burn hotter than the very star it circles. A galaxy can exist while seeming to lack most of the invisible glue that should be holding it together. Perhaps what is most astonishing is not the universe's strangeness, but the fact that we are still here, quietly contemplating it. Immanuel Kant once wrote in Critique of Practical Reason, "Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe: the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. The starry heavens above and the moral law within." Two infinities. One is the vast openness of the cosmos. The other is the depth of consciousness. And perhaps tonight we stand gently between them. But you do not need to understand it all. You do not need to unravel every paradox. You do not need to grasp the entire architecture of reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You do not need to control the expansion of the universe in order to be at peace. You do not need to explain how a star becomes diamond. You only need to be here, to listen." Perhaps peace does not lie in understanding everything that lies beyond us, but in accepting that there are things greater than ourselves and still feeling safe within them. The universe does not require you to comprehend it in order to exist within it. It continues to expand whether you are awake or asleep. Galaxies continue to turn. White dwarfs continue to cool across billions of years, and you need only close your eyes for a moment. Among all these things that sound like fiction, there is one thing utterly real: your breath right now, slowing, softening. Out there may be stars made of diamond, but in this moment, stillness is the rarest treasure of all, and you are resting inside it. In the deep shadowed regions of the galaxy, there are stars that no longer burn. They no longer radiate with the brilliance of their youth. No longer do violent nuclear reactions surge within their cores. No longer do torrents of energy spiral outward, pushing light into the vastness of space. What remains is silence. When a star like our sun exhausts its hydrogen, it swells into a red giant, then gradually casts off its outer layers. What is left behind is the core, a white dwarf. A white dwarf no longer lives in the old sense. It no longer fuses fuel. It simply cools very slowly across billions of years. And within that slow cooling, something strange occurs. Carbon, the element once forged in nuclear fire, begins to rearrange itself. Under immense pressure, carbon atoms lock together into a crystalline structure, like diamond. Not a small stone resting on a wedding ring, but a vast crystalline core as heavy as the sun compressed into a sphere no larger than Earth. One such star is known as Lucy, the White Dwarf, BPM 37,093, about 50 light-years away. Astronomers gave it its nickname after the Beatles' song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." It sounds like poetry, but it is physics. And once we know that Lucy exists, we know something else as well. Our own sun will one day walk that same path. Not tomorrow, not in millions of years, but in about 5 to 7 billion years. The light that warms your skin today will eventually cool, and the remaining core will slowly crystallize into a silent jewel drifting in darkness. Does that thought make you sad? Perhaps it does not need to, because this is not an abrupt ending. It is a transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it is endurable, then endure it. A star burns for billions of years, and then it grows quiet. No drama, no tragedy. Only a change of state within the long symphony of the universe. We often fear the fading, fear the cooling, fear the moment when the light is no more. But if we look more deeply, a white dwarf is not destruction, it is preservation. Carbon, the element that forms your body, was born inside ancient stars. When those stars died, they scattered carbon into space. From that dust, planets formed. And on one small planet, life began. You are breathing stardust. Carl Sagan once wrote in Cosmos, "The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood were made in the interiors of collapsing stars." If that is true and science tells us it is, then the crystallization of a star is not merely a distant event. It is a chapter in the story that led to you. Perhaps that is why the thought of the sun becoming a diamond no longer feels frightening. It is only a beat in a cycle far longer than a human life. Everything that shines brightly will one day become quiet. But quiet does not mean meaningless. It is like a lake after the wind has passed, like a room after a conversation has ended, like a heart after it has loved and hurt, and finally learned to rest. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." A star begins as chaos, heat, and pressure intertwined. And over time, it becomes crystal perfect order. Perhaps a human life unfolds in much the same way. We blaze in our younger years. We collide, we flare, we burn. And slowly, something within us begins to rearrange itself. Slower, quieter, more steady. If the universe allows a star to become diamond after billions of years, then perhaps every transformation has its own rhythm. Tonight, you do not need to think about billions of years. You do not need to imagine a distant future when the sun grows cold. You only need to feel this right now. The sun is still burning. The earth is still turning. And within your body, atoms that once belonged to ancient stars continue to exist. The silence of a white dwarf is not the absence of light. It is light that has completed its journey. And perhaps peace is the same. Not the lack of brilliance, but brilliance that has settled into something deeper. Out there, Lucy drifts through the darkness, a crystal as heavy as the sun, quietly holding the memory of fire. And here in this room, you are slowly settling as well. One day, the light outside may grow dim, but this moment needs only a slow breath, a gentle stillness like a star that has finished shining and rests at last. If in the previous chapter we encountered a star that became diamond in silence, then tonight we travel to the opposite end of the spectrum where the fire has not yet cooled. There are planets out there that are not merely hot. They surpass every notion we have of heat. Imagine a world where the surface temperature is high enough to vaporize metal, where the atmosphere is blasted away, each molecule torn apart by the light of its parent star. A world with no oceans, no rock as we understand it, only plasma and violent stellar winds. Kelt 9b is such a planet. It orbits a massive blue-white star, completing a full revolution in less than 2 days. On its dayside, temperatures climb above 4,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than many small red dwarf stars in the universe. Pause for a moment and feel that paradox. A planet hotter than some stars. If you once believed there was a reasonable order to the cosmos, that stars must always be hotter than planets, that larger must always mean stronger. Celt 9b gently dissolves that assumption. The universe does not read our textbooks, and elsewhere in the galaxy, there is a world called 55 Cancri E, a super-Earth orbiting so close to its star that 1 year lasts only 18 hours. Its surface temperature is high enough to melt rock. Studies once suggested it could be so rich in carbon that under its immense pressures, crystalline diamond structures might form deep beneath its crust. A diamond planet. It sounds like mythology, yet it is a physical possibility. Though later chemical models were refined, the idea remains a reminder that the universe is willing to experiment with structures far beyond human imagination. There are oceans of lava, skies of vaporized metal, tidally locked worlds where one hemisphere burns under relentless light while the other freezes in eternal darkness. Worlds that feel unreasonable. Perhaps they are simply unreasonable to us. Albert Einstein once wrote in The World as I See It, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible." Perhaps what is most astonishing is not that planets exist which are too hot for life. It is that we can understand them, that we can calculate their orbits, analyze their spectra from hundreds of light years away. The universe was not designed for the comfort of human intuition. It does not need to be easy to grasp. We simply happen to evolve on a planet with a climate gentle enough for life to bloom. If Earth orbited a little closer to the Sun, if its orbit tilted slightly, if its atmosphere were thinner, perhaps we would have become a softer version of Celt 9b, a sphere of fire, with no one to observe it. Our existence is not the standard. It is the exception. Blaise Pascal once wrote in Pensées, "The eternal silence of these infinite spaces frightens me." Yet perhaps if we listen long enough, that silence no longer frightens us. Planets too hot for life are not mistakes. They are variations within a vast universe. Nature does not concern itself with human intuition. It does not adjust to fit our expectations. And in some quiet way, that is liberating. Because if the universe does not have to be reasonable by our standards, then your life does not have to fit perfectly into any prescribed mold. There are seasons in life that resemble 55 Cancri, too hot, too pressurized, too close to some star that seems to be burning us. There are moments when we feel we cannot survive that heat. But remember, those worlds still turn. They still exist. They are still part of the cosmic symphony. Perhaps you do not need to be a temperate planet to have worth. You do not need to be forever gentle, forever balanced. There may be days when you are a world of lava, and that too is all right. The universe contains both white dwarfs crystallized in silence and planets blazing in ferocity. Both belong to it, and so do you. Tonight, as you think of worlds too hot to sustain life, feel this instead: your Earth is cool enough. The sky is calm enough. Your heartbeat is steady enough. Out there, metals evaporate into clouds. But here in this room, everything is softer. Nature does not care about human intuition. Yet it has given you a place gentle enough to rest. And perhaps within that vast and unreasonable cosmos, this small piece is the most reasonable thing you need. For many decades, astronomers believe that the universe is held together by something invisible, not a mystical force from mythology, not a supernatural energy, but dark matter. We cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We cannot measure it through light. Yet when scientists observed how galaxies rotate far faster than the visible matter alone, could account for, they realized there must be something else adding gravitational pull, a kind of cosmic glue. It is estimated that about 85% of the matter in the universe is dark matter. The part we can see, stars, planets, gas dust, is only the surface layer. And then, two galaxies appeared like quiet question marks. NGC 1052, DF2 and NGC 1052 DF4. Faint, diffuse galaxies tens of millions of light-years away. When scientists measured the motion of the star clusters within them, the results were surprising. The amount of dark matter seemed extremely low, perhaps nearly absent. A galaxy without its glue. If that is true, then it is not only DF2 or DF4 that are unusual. It is the entire assumption about how galaxies form. What happens if a foundational assumption is wrong? That is not a crisis. That is science. Karl Popper once wrote in Conjectures and Refutations, science must begin with myths and with the criticism of myths. Science begins with hypotheses, and it matures by questioning them. DF2 and DF4 were soon debated. Some studies suggested the initial distance measurements may have been miscalculated, leading to errors in estimating mass. Other teams continued to analyze the data. The story has not closed, and it is precisely this openness that is beautiful. Dark matter may still exist as we think, or the models may need refinement, or perhaps something deeper waits to be understood. Albert Einstein wrote in a 1936 letter, "No amount of experimentation can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong. A small galaxy can prompt an enormous theory to re-examine itself. And that is not failure. It is humility." Perhaps our own lives unfold in a similar way. We build our personal dark matter invisible beliefs that hold everything together. We believe in how things should function. We believe in how people ought to behave. We trust familiar orders. And then one day a small event occurs like a quiet DF2, and the entire structure trembles. What happens if a foundational assumption is wrong? We may feel afraid. We may resist. But in science, when an assumption is challenged, researchers do not close their telescopes. They measure again. They observe again. They ask new questions. Science is not a collection of immutable answers. It is a process of self-correction. Gentle, patient, without pride. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change." To change one's perspective is not weakness, it is strength. DF2 and DF4 may eventually be explained within the current framework, or they may open something entirely new. What matters is this: the universe does not have to fit perfectly within our models. We are the ones who must adjust. Perhaps that is the quiet healing science offers. It shows us that not knowing is not a flaw. Being wrong is not a failure. And revising ourselves is not a loss. Out there may indeed be galaxies without dark matter, or perhaps we simply have not yet understood our measurements fully. Either way, the universe continues to turn, stars continue to move, and questions remain open. Tonight, you do not need to solve the puzzle of dark matter. You do not need to decide whether DF2 truly lacks its glue. You only need to feel this: there are invisible things holding you together. There are quiet beliefs shaping how you see the world. And if one of them needs adjustment, it does not mean you collapse. It only means you are learning. Like science. Slowly, humbly, always willing to revise itself when the universe whispers something new. If in the previous chapter we spoke of the invisible things that hold galaxies together, then tonight we turn to another invisible presence, a fragrance. Imagine standing in a darkened room, and in the air there drifts a faint scent, slightly sweet, slightly sharp, reminiscent of rum or ripe raspberries. You might think you're in a seaside bar, but no. That scent exists near the center of the Milky Way. Sagittarius B2 is one of the largest molecular clouds near the core of our galaxy. It stretches across hundreds of light years, filled with gas and dust, the raw ingredients for new stars. And within it, astronomers have detected ethyl formate, a complex organic molecule, a chemical component that contributes to the flavor of rum and the aroma of raspberries. Pause for a moment and feel the strangeness of this. Within a cosmos so often described as cold, dark, and endless, there are molecules that carry the trace of flavor. Not because the universe wishes to cook, not because someone is mixing drinks out there, but because chemistry simply works. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, the same elements that form your body, collide within frigid clouds of gas. Under the influence of radiation and time, they combine into more complex molecules. Sagittarius B2 is like a cosmic kitchen. No chef, no intention, only atoms experimenting with their recipes across millions of years. Carl Sagan once wrote in Cosmos, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff." If that is true, and science tells us it is, then those rum-scented molecules are not foreign. They are kin. Prebiotic chemistry is the bridge from inorganic matter to the complex structures that may lead to life. Amino acids, simple sugars, organic molecules all can form under the right conditions. This does not prove that life exists within Sagittarius B2, but it shows that the ingredients of life are not rare. The universe is not composed solely of simple hydrogen and helium. It mixes, it experiments, it repeats. Perhaps life is not a singular miracle. Perhaps it is a natural consequence of chemistry given enough time. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "All things are interwoven with one another. Atoms connect, molecules form, complex structures emerge. From a faint cloud of gas, a star system may arise. From a planet rich in organic molecules, oceans may form. From oceans, consciousness may emerge." Consciousness now listening to these words. Perhaps the most comforting part of Sagittarius B2's story is not the scent of rum. It is the idea that the universe is not entirely sterile. It is not only rock and fire. It contains molecules capable of telling the story of life. Blaise Pascal once wrote in Pensée, "Man is but a reed, the most feeble thing in nature." But he is a thinking reed. A thinking reed. If the universe is a vast chemical kitchen, then humanity is one of its most intricate dishes, a structure capable of questioning the very ingredients from which it was made. You are sitting here in a quiet room, breathing in and out. In each breath are carbon atoms that once belonged to ancient stars. Within your body, chemical bonds operate according to the same principles as in Sagittarius B2. 26,000 light-years suddenly feels less distant. Perhaps life is not as rare as we imagine. Perhaps cosmic kitchens like Sagittarius B2 exist everywhere. And if so, the feeling of loneliness beneath the stars may soften just a little. You are not the sole exception in a meaningless universe. You may be part of a deeper chemical tendency. But tonight, you do not need to answer how many civilizations might exist out there. You only need to feel this. Within the quiet of this room, there is a breath. Within that breath are atoms that once drifted near the galactic center. The universe is not merely cold emptiness. It is a place where atoms find one another. And perhaps just as ethyl formate forms among stardust, the moments of connection in your life are not rare accidents. They are the natural outcome of atoms knowing how to meet. Out there, Sagittarius B2 U2 continues to quietly blend molecules in the dark. Here in this room, you too are part of that formula. And in this moment, perhaps the only thing you need to do is let everything settle like the faintest fragrance drifting gently through the night. If, in the previous chapter, we stood within a cosmic kitchen where molecules collided quietly in the dark, then tonight we step even farther toward the edge of ideas that can cause the imagination to fall silent. Imagine a black hole, not as in the movies, not a roaring mouth devouring light in violent storms, but an extreme structure of space-time where gravity is so intense that even light cannot return. In Einstein's general relativity, a black hole is not merely an object. It is a region where space-time is curved so profoundly that every possible path bends inward. And yet the mathematics does not end there. Some solutions suggest that inside a black hole, rather than a simple singular point, there may exist a structure resembling an expanding universe. This idea is known as black hole cosmology. In that view, each black hole could be a seed of a new universe. Our universe might be the interior of a black hole within a larger universe, and that universe might itself reside inside another black hole. Like the old story of the turtle holding up the world, and beneath that turtle another turtle turtles all the way down. No bottom, no final layer. Only structures nested within structures. When the James Webb Space Telescope began sending back deeper images than ever before of early galaxies, some analyses hinted that the distribution of galaxy rotation directions might be slightly asymmetric. These results are still debated and examined, but their mere existence reminds us that the picture may be larger than we once thought. If our universe has an overall swirling structure, if it carries the imprint of some parent entity, then the very notions of center and edge would change entirely. If so, where are we? Inside a black hole. On the inner surface of a child universe, or simply a small point in an endless chain, Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée Moi, is equally incapable of seeing the nothingness from which he emerges and the infinity in which he is engulfed. We cannot see the nothingness from which we arise, nor the infinity that surrounds us. Perhaps that is why this idea feels both frightening and gentle. Frightening because it loosens the sense that we stand upon a fixed foundation. Gentle because vastness does not necessarily mean chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul. If the universe is a unified living whole, then being nested within something larger is not the collapse of meaning. It is the expansion of it. Perhaps we are not at the center of anything. Perhaps there is no center. But that does not diminish the value of a single point. A drop of water is not less meaningful because the ocean is immense. If our universe is inside a black hole, every moment of yours is still real. This heartbeat is real. This feeling is real. The sleep approaching you is real. Perhaps the question, where are we, does not require an absolute coordinate. Perhaps here is enough. Einstein once said in The World as I See It, the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. Mystery is not something to be eliminated. It is what keeps the intellect humble. If universes are nested within universes, if each black hole is a beginning, if structure has no bottom, then stability does not lie in finding a final edge. It lies in accepting that there may be none. Out there, black holes continue their silent existence. Galaxies keep turning. Light bends around extreme curvatures of space-time. And here in this room, you are still breathing in and out. Perhaps we are inside a black hole, perhaps not. But tonight, that does not change the simple truth that you are being held by space-time. by invisible forces, by a structure steady enough to support every atom within you. Turtles all the way down no longer feels like instability. It becomes continuity. And within that continuity, you do not need to find the bottom. You only need to close your eyes for a moment and allow yourself to drift within the gentle architecture of a universe that may be deeper than we ever imagined, and yet still safe enough for you to fall asleep. If in the previous chapter we stood before the possibility that the universe itself might be nested within a black hole, then tonight we return to a story more familiar. The Big Bang. The name sounds like an echo, like fireworks erupting in a dark expanse, like a central point, a brilliant instant from which everything was hurled outward. But the truth is far gentler. The Big Bang was not an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself. There was no center from which one could stand and watch things fly away. No edge marking where the outside begins. Instead, every point was once closer to every other point, and over time the distances between them have grown. Imagine a loaf of bread dough dotted with tiny raisins. When you place it in the oven, the dough begins to rise. The space between the raisins increases. If you were a raisin within that dough, you would see every other raisin drifting away from you. And here is the quiet wonder: every raisin could say the same. No raisin sits at the center. No raisin is privileged. The universe is like this. When astronomers observe the light from distant galaxies, they find it red-shifted, its wavelength stretched as the space between us expands. The galaxies are not racing through a static emptiness. The fabric of space-time itself is stretching. Albert Einstein wrote in Relativity, the Special and the General Theory. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Space and time are not a fixed stage upon which events unfold. They are part of the drama itself. When we understand this, the question, where is the center of the universe, grows lighter. If every point sees others receding, then in a certain sense every point is the center. And if every point is the center, then no point holds that privilege absolutely. We are not at the edge, nor at the center. We are simply here. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensées, "The universe is an infinite sphere, the center of which is everywhere, the circumference nowhere. An infinite sphere, its center everywhere, its boundary nowhere." That whisper from the 17th century still resonates with modern cosmology. If the center is everywhere, then this moment, this room is also a center. This does not make you the center of everything. It simply reminds you that you are not placed at the margin. In life, we often worry about our position. We want to stand at the center of attention, or we fear being pushed to the edge, forgotten. But if the universe has no absolute center, then position is not what determines meaning. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Wherever a man can live, he can live well. Wherever we can live well. No special coordinate required. No title of centrality needed. As space expands, distances grow. Yet the raisins do not lose their essence. They remain raisins holding their own structure. You are the same. However far the universe stretches, however lacking in permanent center, you remain a singular structure of atoms and awareness. Not the edge, not the center, simply here. There is a quiet healing in that thought. You do not need to become the most important point to have value, nor do you need to fear being cast aside. In a universe where every point was once closer to every other, each position shares a common history. Every atom within you was once nearer to every other atom when space was smaller and hotter. The Big Bang was not a bang. It was an opening, a gradual unfolding of distance, an unfolding of structure, an unfolding of possibility. And tonight, you too may open in your own way. No need to search for the center. No need to seek the edge. Only feel this space is expanding. Galaxies are drifting apart. But the present moment, this breath remains entirely here. In a universe with no absolute center, here is enough. If, in the previous chapter, we spoke of a universe without a center, then tonight we narrow our gaze, remaining within our own solar system. 3 rocky planets lie close together, one gentle and blue, one dusty and red, one golden veiled in toxic clouds: Mars, Venus, and Earth. 3 worlds shaped from nearly the same blueprint, born from the same disk of dust around a young star, bathe in the light of the same sun, yet their destinies diverged. Mars today is cold and dry. Its surface bears the scars of ancient flows, riverbeds that once carried water lakes that once existed. Billions of years ago, it may not have been entirely unlike the young Earth, but Mars is smaller. Its core cooled more quickly. Its magnetic field weakened. The solar wind slowly stripped away its atmosphere. Water evaporated, froze, vanished. A world of almost. Venus followed another path, nearly the same size as Earth. It may once have held shallow oceans, but a runaway greenhouse feedback sent its surface temperatures soaring. Carbon dioxide accumulated. Thick clouds sealed the sky. Today, Venus is hot enough to melt lead. Another world of almost. Perhaps Earth is not the standard. Perhaps it is only one among many experiments. Life may not be inevitable. It may be a fragile equilibrium between too hot and too cold, too near and too far, too small and too large. James Lovelock wrote in Gaia, "A new look at life on Earth." The entire range of living matter on Earth, from whales to viruses, could be regarded as constituting a single living entity. Earth as a self-regulating being. A complex system maintaining climatic and chemical balance. Yet that balance is not permanent. It is the outcome of billions of years of subtle interactions. A slightly altered orbit. A larger collision. A weaker magnetic field. A small deviation from optimal conditions, and Earth might have become another Mars, or another Venus. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensées, "Man is but a reed, the most feeble thing in nature, but he is a thinking reed, a fragile reed, yet capable of thought." Perhaps it is precisely this fragility that gives life its value. If life is an experiment repeated across the universe, not every experiment must succeed. But success here is not triumph. It is temporary. Mars did not fail. Venus did not err. They simply followed different trajectories of physics. And Earth is not guaranteed forever. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Everything that exists is in a manner the seed of that which will be. Everything that exists carries within it the seed of what will come." Perhaps life is not the final destination of the cosmos. It is one phase within a longer cycle. This thought may unsettle us, but it may also soften us. For if life is not a permanent privilege, then each moment becomes more precious. You are sitting here in a room warm enough. The atmosphere is thick enough to protect you. The magnetic field strong enough to shield radiation. The orbit stable enough to sustain the rhythm of seasons. A chain of delicate conditions is holding you. Fragility is not a reason for fear. It is a reason for appreciation. If life can be an experiment repeated throughout the universe, perhaps it is also repeated throughout a human life. There are seasons like Mars, dry, silent. There are seasons like Venus, overheated, tense. And then there are moments of fragile balance like Earth today. Not perfect, but enough. Out there, the almost planets continue circling the sun. They do not resent. They do not compare. They simply are physical structures in space. And you are a physical structure capable of feeling. Life may be an experiment repeated many times, But tonight in this experiment, you are here. And perhaps within that fragility, one thing is enough. Gently breathe in. Gently breathe out. Like a small planet turning at just the right distance to sustain life for one more day. If in the previous chapter we spoke of worlds that were almost then tonight, we turn to things that seem impossible and yet are already here on this very planet. As children, we dream of superpowers, the ability to regenerate wounds, the ability to release bolts of electricity, the power to transcend the limits of the body. And yet, the quiet wonder is this nature has been experimenting with such abilities for a very long time. The axolotl. A small salamander living in the lakes of Mexico can regenerate a lost limb. Not only the outer skin, but bone, blood vessels, nerves. If necessary, it can regrow part of its heart, a segment of spinal cord, even portions of brain tissue. There is no magic, no hidden energy field, only cells, genes, and subtle regulation. When a limb is lost, the cells at that site return to a state resembling early embryonic form. They remember how to reconstruct what was missing. Regeneration is not something beyond nature. It is an evolutionary strategy. Elsewhere in the murky rivers of South America, the electric eel moves quietly through dark waters. Within its long body are specialized cells capable of producing electric pulses of hundreds of volts. A living creature generating its own current. Not through machinery, but through biology. There are octopuses that can change the color of their skin in an instant. Birds that sense the Earth's magnetic field during migration. Microorganisms that thrive in acid and heat under crushing pressure. These superpowers are not anomalies. They are the outcome of millions of years of experimentation. Charles Darwin wrote in On the Origin of Species, "From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. From simple beginnings, endless forms, beautiful and wondrous, have emerged and continue to emerge." Nature is not constrained by human imagination. It does not stop at what we consider reasonable. It experiments. If a structure works, it remains. If not, it fades away. No drama, only selection. Within that long chain of experiments, life has explored capacities we call supernatural, simply because we are unfamiliar with them. Perhaps what astonishes us is not regeneration or electricity themselves, but the quiet way they occur. The axolotl does not know it is extraordinary. The electric eel does not take pride in its voltage. They simply live. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Look within." Within is the fountain of good. Perhaps within every living structure there are potentials not yet recognized. Not to transform us into superheroes, but to remind us that life always contains more than it reveals at first glance. If nature has experimented with every possibility in biology, how many more possibilities remain hidden? Perhaps in deep forests there are still creatures unknown. Perhaps in the dark oceans mechanisms exist that would astonish us. And perhaps within you too, there are capacities never yet tested. Not the ability to generate electricity, not the regrowth of limbs, but the capacity to adapt, to learn, to recover after loss. The axolotl regenerates a limb. A human being can regenerate trust. The electric eel produces a shock for defense. A human mind can generate ideas to overcome difficulty. Nature does not experiment only with bodies. It experiments with behavior, with perception, with thought. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée Man is but a reed, but he is a thinking reed. A thinking reed. That capacity for thought is another kind of superpower, not loud, not luminous, but strong enough to question itself. If life can regenerate, limbs produce electricity, sense magnetic fields, then how many other abilities remain beyond our understanding? The question does not need an immediate answer. Tonight, it need only remain like an open possibility. Out there, axolotls continue swimming through cool water. Electric eels glide through dark rivers. Creatures that seem to break the rules are simply living according to rules we are still learning to read. And here you sit in stillness. You do not need superpowers to have worth. You do not need to be extraordinary to exist. Only remember that life in any of its forms always holds more than we first perceive. And in that quiet recognition, perhaps the greatest ability is not regeneration or voltage. It is the ability to listen, gently, slowly, as the universe has experimented with every possibility before arriving at this very moment. If in the previous chapters we traveled across galaxies and planets, then tonight we return closer. Not to Earth, not to the solar system, but to you. Did you know that your body emits light? Not a glow bright enough to see in a mirror, not a halo like in sacred paintings, but extremely faint photons released by chemical reactions within your cells. Scientists have used ultra-sensitive cameras to capture this phenomenon, a form of ultra-weak bioluminescence. You are shining, quietly, invisible to the naked eye. Like white dwarfs slowly cooling in space, your body releases subtle traces of metabolism, tiny signals of light born from the process of living. And that is only the beginning. If all the blood vessels in your body were laid end to end from major arteries to hair-thin capillaries, they would stretch nearly 100,000 kilometers, almost 2.5 times around the Earth. A transport network more intricate than any human infrastructure functioning without your command. The heart beats, blood flows, oxygen is delivered in silence. And each night when you lie down to sleep, your spine lengthens slightly. The discs between your vertebrae rehydrate. You are a little taller in the morning than you were at night, a small change, yet proof that the body is never entirely still. Heraclitus once said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." Not only does the river change, you change. In every moment, cells die and are replaced. Billions of chemical reactions unfold. Molecules collide just as they do in Sagittarius B2. The strange is not only out there, it is within you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Dig within." Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up. Perhaps when we gaze at the night sky, we search for wonder in distant places, but the universe does not only expand outward, it also expands inward. Within each of your cells lies a history, billions of years in the making. Within each strand of DNA are traces of ancient organisms. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." Your body is not separate from the universe. It is one of its methods of awareness. The faint light you emit began long ago in nuclear reactions within stars. The iron in your blood was forged in a supernova, and your nervous system, a delicate web of bioelectric signals, operates according to the same physical principles that allow the electric eel to generate its charge. You are not an exception to nature. You are one of its most intricate experiments. This does not make you the center of the universe, but it does not place you at the edge either. You are a complex structure sustained by a fragile balance of temperature, pressure, charge, and chemistry. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée, "Man is but a reed, but he is a thinking reed, a fragile reed, yet one that thinks." Perhaps the most healing realization is that you do not need to search elsewhere for wonder. It is already here, in the heartbeat, in the bloodstream, in the slight shift of height as you sleep. Out there, galaxies continue to turn. Black holes continue to bend light. Space continues to expand. But none of that diminishes the quiet extraordinariness of your body. Your faint glow may be invisible, yet it is evidence that you are alive. And to live in the pure biological sense is already a chain of miracles sustained across billions of years. Tonight, when you lie down, your spine will lengthen slightly. Your heart will slow. Your nervous system will move into deeper cycles of rest. You will be a little taller in the morning, and that faint light will continue. The strange is not only in the stars, it is within you. And perhaps once you recognize this, you no longer need to search for greatness in distant places. You need only listen, gently, slowly, like a small star shining in its own quiet way in the stillness of the night. If in the previous chapter we looked at the faint light emitted by your body, then tonight we turn toward the gentle darkness within it, sleep. Each night when you close your eyes, the body does not shut down. It shifts phase. Sleep is not an emptiness. It is a cycle. At first, you enter NREM. Your brain waves slow, the body softens. The heart grows quieter, the breath steadier. Then, after about 90 minutes, something remarkable happens. Your brain becomes almost as active as when you are awake. Your eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids. This is REM, rapid eye movement. The body lies nearly still, yet inside a world begins to unfold. Dreams. Scientists believe that during REM, the brain processes memories, emotions, and information gathered throughout the day. Electrochemical signals once scattered and chaotic are woven into narrative. A road you once walked, a familiar face, a landscape that never existed. The brain does not merely replay data, it composes. William Shakespeare wrote in The Tempest, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." Perhaps he did not know about REM cycles or theta waves. Yet he sensed something profound. Sleep is not an interruption of life. It is what encircles it. In dreams, time contracts. Space reshapes itself. Logic grows pliable. And what is astonishing is this. The brain can generate entire experiences from tiny electrical pulses. From currents passing across synapses, a universe appears. If the brain can compose a story from chaos, might the universe be doing the same? From quantum fluctuations in the earliest moments of expansion, from slight variations in matter density, galaxies formed. From collisions of atoms, molecules emerged. From molecules, cells. From cells, consciousness. Perhaps the universe is telling its story as well, not in words, but in structure. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." If that is true, then each of your dreams is a small chapter in a larger narrative. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." The universe is change. Our life is shaped by thought. In sleep, you do not control those thoughts. They drift like clouds. Some dreams are gentle, some are strange, some dissolve before morning arrives. Yet all are expressions of a nervous system quietly at work. You do not need to guide it. You do not need to interpret every image. Just as the universe does not require you to understand every galaxy in order to continue expanding. Sleep is an act of trust. Trust that the body knows how to restore itself. Trust that the brain knows how to rearrange memory. Trust that darkness is not emptiness, but space for something new. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." Perhaps sleep is the gentle answer to that observation. When you lie still in a room doing nothing, the body and mind continue their own quiet work. Out there, galaxies revolve in silence. Black holes absorb light. Space continues to expand. And here in this room, your brain waves are slowing. N-R-E-M. R-E-M. The cycles repeat. A dream may arrive like a soft current. A story that does not require logic. And perhaps just as the universe tells its story across billions of years, you are telling yours across each night. There is no need to understand it all. No need to remember it all. Simply let it unfold. Gently. Like space expanding without an explosion. Like the brain weaving story from scattered signals. Sleep is not disappearance. It is another chapter. And as your eyelids lower, perhaps the universe through you continues its story, in silence. If in the previous chapter we stepped into dreams, then tonight we move toward the forces that uphold both dreams and the waking world. Modern physics recognizes 4 fundamental forces. Gravity, drawing you toward the Earth, holding planets in orbit around the sun, binding galaxies into structure. Electromagnetism, governing light-electric charge chemical bonds, and even the tiny electrical impulses within your brain. The strong nuclear force binding protons and neutrons together inside atomic nuclei, overcoming their mutual electrical repulsion. The weak nuclear force allowing certain particles to transform, playing a crucial role in the nuclear fusion that powers the stars. Only 4 forces. And from them, every structure emerges. Albert Einstein once wrote in a 1933 lecture at Oxford, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." 4 forces, a profound simplicity. And yet, science does not end there. There are hints, small anomalies, and experiments suggesting that a 5th force might exist. An interaction not yet understood, perhaps connected to dark matter or to subtle deviations in particle motion. So far, there is no definitive evidence, but the idea remains like an open space. Reality may be deeper than the layer we perceive. In string theory, fundamental particles are no longer dimensionless points. They are unimaginably tiny strings vibrating at different frequencies. Each mode of vibration corresponds to a different particle, and for the equations to remain consistent, the universe may require more dimensions than the 4 we know as space-time, 9, 10, or more. These additional dimensions are not places one could enter through a physical doorway. They may be curled up at scales so small they evade all direct observation. The idea sounds like poetry. Yet, it arises from mathematics. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée nature is an infinite sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. If nature is an infinite sphere, then its having further depth is not unreasonable. Perhaps we are living on the surface of something far more intricate, like a 2-dimensional being on a sheet of paper unable to conceive of height. Our own perception may be similarly bounded, limited by the structure of our nervous system and our senses. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Consider how swiftly all things are dissolved and resolved into their elements. Everything dissolves and recombines into its basic components. If we look deeply enough, we may no longer see table or person, but only fields and interactions. And if there are forces not yet known, that does not make the world more frightening. It simply makes it deeper. Perhaps our lives are like this as well. We think we understand every motive, every emotion. Then one day we discover a 5th force within ourselves, a tendency, a fear, a potential never before recognized, not to unsettle us, but to expand us." Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. The wonder may not lie in proving a new force. It may lie in the attitude of waiting. Waiting is not passivity. It is readiness." Out there, particles continue to interact. Fields continue to vibrate. Space-time continues to curve under mass. And if additional dimensions are curled at Planck scales, they remain quietly present whether or not we perceive them. But tonight, you do not need to imagine 11 dimensions. You only need to feel this: you are being held by gravity. You are connected by electromagnetism in every synapse. You exist because the strong force binds atomic nuclei, and the weak force helped forge the elements within ancient stellar cores. 4 fundamental forces enough to support a consciousness listening in stillness. If reality is deeper than the surface we see, that does not make you smaller. It makes you part of a larger structure. There is no need to understand everything, no need to reach the final layer of the equation, only to know that beneath the surface of all things invisible interactions are at work. Just as beneath the surface of your thoughts right now, there is a deeper quiet. And in that quiet, perhaps no additional force is required. Only a gentle release, like a small particle held by unseen interactions without needing to know their names. If in the previous chapter we spoke of the invisible forces that uphold reality, then tonight we turn to light. Not the light of lamps, but the light of stars. In the core of the sun, where temperatures rise to millions of degrees, hydrogen nuclei collide with such intensity that they overcome their mutual electric repulsion and fuse into helium. This reaction is called nuclear fusion. When the nuclei merge, a tiny fraction of mass transforms into energy. E equals mc squared. A brief equation, yet it contains the radiance of an entire star. The sunlight that touches your eyelids during the day began its journey hundreds of thousands of years ago in the sun's core, and then traveled 8 more minutes across space to reach Earth. Light is the story of a star. And from early in our history, human beings looked up at the night sky and dreamed of touching those distant points of brightness. At first, the dream was poetry. Then science began to understand what burns within a star's heart. And once understood, the dream no longer seemed entirely impossible. If we could control fusion on Earth, not as an explosion, but as a steady source of power, we might create engines stronger than anything we now possess. Fusion propulsion. Instead of burning chemical fuel to push a spacecraft, we would harness the same principle that makes stars shine. A vessel could travel far faster than today's rockets, perhaps approaching a significant fraction of the speed of light. Albert Einstein once said in a 1955 interview with William Miller, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. It is perhaps this refusal to cease asking that carried humanity from campfires to nuclear reactors. If fusion is the heart of stars, then bringing it into technology is not a challenge to the universe. It is a lesson learned from it." Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "Somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. That wonder may not lie only in discovering a new planet, but in realizing that we operate with the same physics as the stars themselves." The dream of interstellar travel is not merely an escape from Earth. It is a continuation of evolution, from single-celled life in the ocean to beings capable of gazing at the sky, from wooden rafts to spacecraft leaving orbit. If one day a fusion-powered vessel glides through the dark between stars, it will carry within it the very reaction that blazes in the core of the star it departs. There is poetry in that. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being." If the cosmos is a unified whole, then the dream of touching the stars is not intrusion, it is return. But tonight, you do not need to imagine spacecraft nearing light speed. You do not need to calculate relativistic time dilation. Only remember that sunlight nourishes every cell of your body. Stellar energy has been within you for a very long time. The iron in your blood was forged in an ancient star. The carbon in your body is the product of fusion. You do not merely dream of stars. you are made of them. William Wordsworth wrote in Ode, "Intimations of immortality our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting." Perhaps looking up at the sky is a way of remembering. The dream of traveling among the stars is not an escape from Earth. It is an expression of curiosity, a force not counted among the four fundamental interactions, yet powerful enough to shape history. If one day humanity crosses the vastness between stars, it will not diminish the importance of Earth. It will simply widen the story. And right now, in this quiet room, you do not need a fusion engine. You need only a breath. Inhale energy from the stars, enters your body through food, through sunlight stored in plants. Exhale that energy, continues its cycle. The dream of reaching the stars is not only poetry. It begins with a small physical reaction unfolding in the core of an ordinary star. And within that ordinariness, there is something profoundly gentle. You do not need to travel anywhere tonight. The light of the stars is already here. If we look back at the journey we have taken, it resembles a chain of things that once seemed impossible. A star with a crystallized core like a diamond. Black holes that may not be endings, but the beginnings of other universes. Planets hotter than red dwarfs. Galaxies that appear to lack the invisible glue we call dark matter. Each chapter has been a doorway opening beyond intuition. And if there is a thread running through them all, it is this: we do not understand everything. When we speak of Sagittarius B2, carrying the scent of ethyl formate near the galactic center, when we consider galaxies like DF2 and DF4 that seem to lack dark matter, when we imagine worlds like KELT9b, burning beyond expectation, we are not presenting a finished system. We are touching the edge. Albert Einstein wrote in The World, "As I see it, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. Perhaps what is most beautiful is not the final answer, but the feeling of standing before something not yet fully understood." Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, did not write about black holes or dark matter, yet he wrote about our posture before what exceeds our control. You have power over your mind, not outside events. You cannot control the expansion of the universe. You cannot determine whether a fifth force exists. You cannot command the deepest structure of space-time, but you can choose how to stand before it. When faced with what is immense, it is easy to feel small. Yet smallness is not meaninglessness. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensées, "When I consider the short duration of my life swallowed up in the infinite immensity of spaces, I am frightened." He felt fear before infinity. But he also recognized that humanity knows it is small and that awareness itself carries dignity. When the universe humbles us, it does not diminish us. It places us where we belong, not at the center, not at the edge, simply as part of a greater structure. If we do not fully understand the diamond heart of a white dwarf, the possible asymmetry of early galaxies, or why some planets evaporate under impossible heat, that does not lessen the value of this day. Marcus reminds us that peace does not arise from mastering the world, but from mastering our response. You may not grasp the full architecture of reality, but you can understand one simple thing: you are breathing. Out there, galaxies continue to drift. Fusion continues in stellar cores. Space continues to expand. All of it proceeds whether you decipher it or not. And this can be felt in two ways. One, anxiety, because we do not hold the entire picture. Two, relief, because we do not need to hold it. Stoicism does not teach indifference. It teaches discernment, what lies within our control and what does not. The universe belongs to the second. Peace belongs to the first. If earlier chapters expanded your imagination, this one gently gathers it back, not to shrink it, but to set it down. like closing a thick book, like the night sky dimming as your eyes soften. You do not need to understand every fundamental force, every extra dimension, every possibility of black hole cosmology to live fully in this moment. You only need to be here. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love." Perhaps what makes the universe bearable is not absolute knowledge, but love, for the act of discovery and acceptance that the journey will never be complete. The universe humbles us, and that humility does not weaken us. It softens us, lightens us, lessens our need to control, lessens our need to understand everything. In this quiet room, as your breathing slows, perhaps you do not need any further answers. Only the sense that within a reality deeper than the surface we perceive you can still find a point of calm, not at the center of the universe, not at its edge, simply here. And now, as the journey has passed through diamond stars, deep black holes, planets too hot to endure, and galaxies missing their invisible glue, the voice may begin to slow, not to conclude, not to gather everything into a finished system, only to set it down. Out there, the universe is still expanding. The distances between galaxies continue to widen quietly, imperceptibly. Vast structures revolve within invisible webs of gravity. Space does not require our understanding in order to unfold. Carl Sagan wrote in Cosmos, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. You are small compared to galaxies, but not meaningless because you are formed from the same structure. Light from ancient stars helped shape your body. The fundamental forces operate within every cell, and whether you reflect on them or not, they continue their quiet work." Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. You do not need to control the expansion of the universe. You do not need to decode the full architecture of reality. You only need to hold the stillness within yourself." Perhaps throughout this journey, your mind tried to grasp it all, the equations, the hypotheses, the possibilities. But tonight, you do not need to understand everything. The universe does not ask that of you. It does not demand perfect comprehension for you to belong within it. Blaise Pascal wrote in Pensée Man is but a reed, but he is a thinking reed, a fragile reed yet capable of thought. That fragility is not weakness, it is depth. Out there, galaxies continue to turn. Fusion continues to burn in stellar cores. Black holes continue to bend light. All of it goes on. And what is beautiful is this: it continues even as you close your eyes. Nothing collapses because you rest. No orbit falters because you fall asleep. You are small, but not without meaning. You are a moment in which the universe becomes aware of itself. A single breath among countless breaths. And now the voice can slow even more. Inhale, exhale. Out there, everything continues. And tonight, you need only rest.